Thank you so much for clicking on my video, and if you're returning, welcome back to my channel. Today, I know it used to be Archetypes Tuesday. Unfortunately, it is currently out of season. Last week was the last episode of this season. I'm hoping it comes back, but until that time, we will continue to supply you with great content regarding the Sussexes and the royal family. However, I found this really great article in CNN.com, and it talks about the validation of Meghan's claims regarding the threats against her and Prince Harry's life. Now, again, people have long lambasted Prince Harry for fighting so hard for security. They've ripped apart his idea of privacy. They've ripped apart Meghan's idea of privacy. And it has always been, in my opinion, kind of a ridiculous point to make. And it was a moot argument. However, I found this article that would continue to validate those claims. And I wanted to bring it to you today to let you know that we aren't crazy. We know that Prince Harry and Meghan were 100% right about the threats against their lives. So let's get into it. Once again, thank you so much for clicking on my video. If you have not already, feel free to go ahead and like this video, subscribe to my channel, and turn on that notification bell. I want to say a huge hello to my Patreon members. Thank you so much. I'm going to say a big hello to the friend circle, and I'm going to curtsy to the royal court. Thank you so much to everyone and for all that you do. So I found this article once again in CNN.com, and it was written by Joshua Berlinger. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And the title of the article is Meghan and Harry faced, quote, disgusting and very real threats, ex-counter-terror chief says. So, oh, I love that photo of Meghan. Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, and her husband, Prince Harry, face disgusting and very real threats from right-wing extremists, a former counterterrorism police chief has said. In an interview with Britain's Channel 4 News on Tuesday, Neil Basu said the threats against Meghan were serious and credible enough that authorities had assigned teams to investigate them. Quote, if you'd seen the stuff that was written and you were receiving it, you would feel under threat all the time, said Basu, who was in charge of the royal protection during his time at the Metropolitan Police. Quote, people have been prosecuted for those threats, said the former Met Assistant Commissioner. Since news of her relationship with Prince Harry broke in 2016, Meghan has been subjected to harsh criticism in the British press. In particular, the UK tabloids have faced allegations that their negative coverage of Meghan fueled racist attacks against her. Those headlines and those articles have very real outcomes. They have very real consequences. The racist bullying on social media became so intense during her first pregnancy that the royal staff was put on high alert, beefing up its own digital presence to filter out hateful comments, including use of the N-word and emojis of guns and knives. Oh, wow. Okay, sorry, I had to gather myself. That's not great. The couple said that the racial abuse Meghan faced was a major factor that drove them to move to the United States and step back as senior members of the royal family. In the couple's bombshell interview with Oprah Winfrey last year, Prince Harry said he felt the palace was not doing enough publicly to combat the continued racial abuse in the press. Harry is currently in a legal dispute with the Home Office regarding the family's security arrangements when they visit the UK. The threats against the royal couple came amid a rise in right-wing extremism in Britain, according to Basu. Basu said in his interview that during his tenure, extreme right-wing terrorism was the fastest growing threat facing the country, going from 6% of the counterterrorism department's workload in 2015 to more than 20% at the time of his departure more than a year ago. Basu, who is mixed race, said he believes the Home Office needs to do more to tackle institutional racism. Quote, I've been the only non-white face as a chief officer for a very long time, he said. I don't think the Home Office cares about this subject at all. The Home Office said in a statement to CNN that UK Home Secretary Suella Braverman expects police forces in the country to take a zero-tolerance approach to racism within their workplace. Quote, we are actively pushing for a cultural change in the police, including via a targeted review of police dismissals to ensure officers who are not fit to serve can be swiftly removed, a spokesperson for the Home Office has said.
In those months when I was pregnant, all around this same time, so we have in tandem the conversation of he won't be given security, he's not going to be given a title. And also concerns and conversations about how dark his skin might be when he's born.
At the time, it was awkward. I was a bit shocked.
Can you tell us what the question was?
No, I'm not comfortable sharing that.
Okay.
Harry added that the royal family didn't want his child to have the title of a prince or a princess and honor his older brother William's 3 children all received. And in the last few months of Meghan's pregnancy, she says she and Harry were told their child wouldn't have security either.
The idea of our son not being safe, and also the idea of the first member of color in this family not being titled in the same way that other grandchildren would be. You know, the other piece of that conversation is when you're the grandchild of the monarch, so when Harry's dad becomes king, automatically Archie and our next baby would become prince or princess. Also, it's not their right to take it away.
No, he cannot never live a normal life. You can step away and try and distance yourself from the paparazzis, which is potentially what he's doing, and from the spotlight, but he's never going to get away from it.
Cohen says there will always be threats out there for the royal couple, especially Harry, who could be the target of a terrorist threat. He did serve in the Middle East, but the #1 threat is paparazzi.
I believe it's the salacious appetite for information, which drives even harder now that we're online, that we're on social media. The aggressive driving, the in-your-face personality of the paparazzi, threat of breaching traffic violations for the purpose of getting a shot of the royal couple while they're out and about and moving.
Cohen believes that would need to continue if Harry has to pay for a private security team with up to 12 guards. That could cost millions.
I would say anywhere between $3 and $5 million a year to protect them around the clock. And that includes mobile security, which is getting them from A to B. It includes estate protection, which is obviously they're staying at the royal palace or whatever palace they are living in. And then there's also travel security. And then there's also security on him, and there's security on her whenever they're not together. So it's a lot of manpower.
I totally get it when he's back in the UK. He should have protection. I totally get that. I don't get why he isn't given it.
Yeah. I don't know either.
So I don't know. It can't be cost.
No, it can't be cost.
So I'm not sure what's going on there.
Not sure.
So I want to bring us back to the original point, which is people have been saying that Prince Harry is carrying on and being dramatic regarding his security needs in the UK, and basically saying if you get rid of your royal titles, then you are not entitled to that. But at what point do we differentiate what is right versus what is moral? If they are facing credible threats because he is a blood-born royal and because the UK tabloids have fueled this racism amongst the country and right-wing extremists towards Meghan, then they do face a very real threat, which in my opinion is caused by him being a royal. With that in mind, just because he's not a senior royal who is an actively working royal, and y'all know how I feel about that, it doesn't mean that he is not entitled to safety once he comes there. Because if he had never been a royal, this wouldn't be an issue. It's the fact that he is a royal family member and the fact that Meghan is mixed race that any of this is happening to begin with. Much of this could have been avoided had the royal family simply stood out to defend Meghan in the first place. Had they not allowed the tabloids to continue to lambast her and fuel this hate in the first place, and had they shared in an alignment with her publicly and shown that they back her as a family member that she very much was and is, then this would not be happening. It's the fact that they have stood by and allowed this to grow and the fervor to become even more undigestible. It's absolutely disgusting. And the fact that they had to ban knife and gun emojis lets me know what kind of things were being said. So I am one of those people who likes to combat the idea that social media is its own place and it's not real, etc., etc. No, the image that people put out there might not be real. However, social media is still a form of communication. So if you are communicating via phone, in person, via letter, video, social media, you are still communicating. So when people say social media is not real, it makes me a little irritated because you are completely undermining a form of communication and a very valid form of communication. Let me make this point. If I call you and I say, I'm going to you can call the police. If I write you a letter and I say, I'm going to rip you limb from limb, you can call the police. If I show up at your house with rope and knives and guns and I say, gonna get ya, that can go to the police. But because I posted in a comment section with the same very real intent as any other form of communication, now for some reason it's invalid. This is part of the reason why I personally and very strongly feel that if you have a presence online, you should be required to verify who you actually are. I'm not a big fan of anonymous scrolling. I'm not a big fan of anonymous activity on social media for that very reason. While I do believe in protecting your IP address and things like that for security reasons, I do feel in order to have a platform where you can communicate with others, people have to be able to locate your real name. And the reason for that is because so many people use social media as their scapegoat, and they like to go to social media to act out their very real, inappropriate fantasies, thoughts, and ways that they can lash out, because in their real life they're getting treated a certain way. They get on social media and they get to be the victor, and they're essentially harassing people. Harassment and any other form of communication would be taken very seriously. Like I said, if I call you, if I write you a letter, if I show up at your house and I'm doing all those things, I can go to jail for those things. But if I leave it in your comment section, suddenly I'm absolved. Not only that, but I did take issue with the fact that this article stated that the royal family beefed up their security and their online presence to weed out those comments. Bull crap. I read those comments. They are still very much there. Have you seen Twitter? Meanwhile, Kate's Botox was defended. But people are literally having to ban gun and knife emojis because people are threatening Meghan. The dismissal of these claims and the dismissal of these allegations from Meghan and Harry regarding what's going on, and I won't even say claims and allegations, the revelations from Harry and Meghan of what they were actually going through. I feel like that's just a way of silencing them because the royal family failed to act. We've already talked about the Metropolitan Police officer who sent those very racist texts about Meghan. How are we supposed to expect the Metropolitan Police to protect Meghan if they are the ones also fueling hateful comments about her? I think the core of the issue is the hatred. And I was glad that the article did state that people who are unfit to serve. I do feel like there needs to be a certain level that you operate on in order to be considered one of those roles, in order to take on that role. I feel like, yes, it is great to be a police officer and to protect and to serve, but you have to be there with the intent to protect and preserve and to serve everyone. If you are there and you have shown any sign of bias, any sign of prejudice, any sign of racism, any sign of having transgression against another group of people, you should not be fit to serve, and you should not be considered okay to serve, and you should not be allowed to serve. I think there should be extensive psychological tests done to anyone who has any type of authority in our society, because your behavior affects actual lives. As someone who once worked for City Hall, I can tell you the vetting process, well, you've seen the results. So all I'm saying is we have seen countless evidence that has backed up what Meghan has said, what Harry has said regarding their safety in the UK. It wasn't all just these, they weren't being treated fairly by the royal family. No, there were actual credible threats to their lives, and we've seen how that's played out in the headlines. People have actually made attempts to get to them. And this brings me to my last point. When Prince Charles thought it would be petty or a get back to strip Prince Harry, Prince Archie, and Princess Meghan of their security, he knew very well what he was doing. It wasn't meant to be petty. It wasn't meant to teach a lesson. It was meant with a very real intent. Because if you know, someone has said, I know where you go every day when you go work out, and the next time you go there, I'm gonna get you. And the only thing keeping you separate from those people is the security that you get to take with you and the anonymity of what time you go there. And someone strips you of your security and then drops your location, they are trying to have a certain outcome happen. Now, I can't confirm or deny any of that. All I can say is the evidence is pointing to a very clear and present threat. And in my opinion, if the police are sharing racist memes about you, the royal family is failing to protect you and feeding the media stories, the media's negative stories are fueling the right-wing extremists who are trying to kill you, and the royal family strips your security and drops your location, to me, it sounds like a very dangerous web to weave with someone in the center. What were y'all trying to get to happen? So again, threats are threats regardless of what form they come in. Whatever process you use to send your message was still received loud and clear. It's also the same thing, side note, when people say like social media is not real life, don't let that affect your relationship, liking photos and leaving comments. Communication is communication. If I see a handsome, dashing man walking down the street and I slip him a note in his pocket and it says, "You fine, want a piece of that?" I would assume that would hurt my husband's feelings. If I followed him home and left him a note and said, "Hey, I wanted to comment on you. You was a fine somebody," that's a problem. I'm still communicating interest in someone else and I'm in a committed relationship. So for all those who say, I don't get into the social media thing, you might want to get into all forms of communication so that you know what's going on. You know what's going on. So again, social media, for all it's worth, it's not real life, but it is. And threats, communication of any kind, all of that is very real. Regardless of what you choose to believe, you can put your head in the sand, but I feel personally that if you know that I've had a threat against my life, not just one, not just two, but many, not only threats, but attempts at my life, and you strip me of my security, and then you point out my location, you are trying to have a specific outcome. And that is why I, as biased as I remain, am always very honest about the outcome that could have been. And I am so grateful that Harry saw through the nonsense and got his family up out of there.
Hey, good morning, George. Yeah, Prince Harry's lawyers are saying that he's reluctant to bring his young children into the UK because he doesn't think it's safe. Now he's fighting for full-time security.
A major legal victory for Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex challenging the UK government and winning the first round in his legal battle over security for him and his family in the UK. When the Duke and Duchess of Sussex stepped back from royal duties in 2020, the government decided Harry would no longer receive taxpayer-funded police protection while in Britain, even if he covered the cost himself, something he says he's willing to do. Now, the judge ruling his case can proceed to the High Court. The judgment citing transparency, adding the prince should have had a chance to make his case.
I am so ready for this docuseries. I cannot wait for all this to come out. We get in the docuseries. We're getting Spare. We are getting fed, and I am excited about it. So tell me what you thought about the article. The link to the article is in the description box below, so I'm interested in hearing your thoughts on it. Please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and turn on that notification bell. And if you are interested in being a member of my YouTube or my Patreon, hit that join button below or use the link in the description box to go to Patreon and sign up there. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.